Community Focus has been brought to you by the Crum Agency, providers of MEMIC insurance. Their telephone number is 734-254-1976, and they are online at krummagency.com.
You're listening to the station focusing on the Plymouth Canton community. This is Community Focus on 88.1 The Park.
Good afternoon and welcome to a special edition of 88.1 The Park's Community Focus. I'm Anuya Shetty and I'm pleased to welcome you to this special presentation of our weekly interview program that goes behind the headlines for an in-depth look at the news that impacts the Plymouth Canton community. I'm joined this afternoon by a special guest, the president of the Plymouth Canton Community Schools Board of Education, Mr. Sean Wilson, and P-CCS students Juhi Pawar, Josh Patterson, and Zach Patterson. They're here to discuss the Board of Education Student Voice in Action Subcommittee. President Wilson, Juhi, Josh, Zach, thanks for being here today. So first of all, to the students, can you tell me what school you go to and what grade you guys are in?
Sure. So I'm Juhi, and I'm a senior at Canton.
I'm Josh. I'm a freshman at Plymouth.
Hello, my name is Zach Patterson, and I am in the Virtual Academy in 7th grade.
Can you tell me a little bit about how the Student Voice in Action Subcommittee was formed, and what was the planning behind this new partnership between students and the board?
First of all, thanks for inviting us to bring a little light to this new committee. Definitely a big fan of 88.1, so excited to be here. Ultimately, the Student Voice in Action Committee really came about based out of the dynamic plan, the strategic plan that the Board of Education did. And one of the pillars that we really wanted to focus on was student voice. And I think the district has done a pretty good job of doing that through surveys and evaluations and things of that nature. But we saw that there was an opportunity to really institutionalize that voice. And in order to have strong student voice, it has to be represented on every level of the district. And we saw that there was a gap at the board level where we were basically getting information filtered to us, which is great. It was amazing information from the students, but we wanted that direct connection. And so the Student Voice in Action Committee is a board level committee, which means the students will work directly with the Board of Education. It means that students will have an opportunity to influence policy, influence decision making at the highest level of the district, which is the Board of Education. And in order to do that, though, what we didn't want to do is basically set up the committee in full and then say, okay, now students can come. So there's really two distinct components. The first group of students is really the planning committee. And so they've helped to develop everything from the rubrics to the application process to the committee description. We wanted to fully empower the students. And then those students will then be a part of selecting the students who will formally serve on the Student Voice in Action Committee.
And why was it so important to have a separate group of students who were helping on planning this committee before the committee actually was formed?
Because what we didn't want to do was be over prescriptive. So, once again, if you're going to do student voice authentically, you have to give students a voice in the very beginning of the process. You can't set the table and then invite them, right? You have to empower them to actually help set the table. And I think that ensures that we're, from the beginning, being authentic with our engagement with the students. And then the second group, once the formal committee is really launched, they're going to be setting a student agenda for the entire district that aligns with our dynamic plan that we just launched, our 5-year dynamic plan, and submitting a budget that goes along with that. I've been doing youth voice, student voice for many years, and a lot of times adults will give students a seat at the table, but they don't give them the dollars to go with it. So one of the things I'm really proud of, and I think the Board of Education did a great job of, was saying we're going to commit to the resources in addition to empowering the students to set the vision.
I think we mentioned a few of the goals of the committee already, but are there any more, and could you expand on those a little bit?
The biggest goal is to help to set the student agenda for the entire district. And once again, that's going to align with the dynamic plan that the board and the superintendent administration already launched. And some of those components in that dynamic plan really focus on equity, right, and inclusion, and making sure that we're an equitable and inclusive district. It focuses on innovation. It focuses on student-centered education. And so what we want to know from this SVA committee is what do those things mean to you? What would you like to see done in those areas? And what's your agenda for accomplishing those things? And then what resources do you need in order to make it happen?
Given the resources that he's just mentioned, what kind of plans and actions do you see that you guys could take on the committee?
So one of the things that really mattered to me, and that wasn't even honestly completely clear until Mr. Wilson explained it just now, was how much thought you guys have put into getting this committee ready before even we got there. Because I personally just got the email from a teacher that said you guys were looking for student leaders. I didn't realize how much effort you guys put into finding people, and not only just picking student leaders, but picking kids who might not have a value for leadership yet, who might not place emphasis on leadership yet. At every meeting, you guys make sure to check us and you say, like, well, what about a kid who doesn't know their passion yet? So this is an opportunity for all kids, no matter what they're doing, no matter what they think they can accomplish, to get involved.
I agree 100%. I got an email from Amanda Palukas saying, hey, this seems like something you might want to do. And I didn't know what it was, and I decided it was something to show up. And I'm very glad I did, because it is really empowering students and giving them the ability to make actual change at a young age.
Yesterday, I was actually told that they wanted me to try this, and I was glad I tried, and I think I'm going to do it.
I see that there's some information on the district website that there are both committee positions and leadership positions available. Could you expand and explain a little bit on some of those roles that are on the committee itself?
All right, so we decided that once we have our actual committee members picked based off the applications, we're going to go ahead and have an elections process where we elect 2 equal co-chairs. These co-chairs will be mostly in charge of reporting back to the larger Board of Education on what we've been doing, but below them there are going to be subcommittees within this subcommittee. So each part of the Student Voice and Action Committee is going to be focusing on doing something different to empower youth voice, and those will all have their own leaders who would then answer to our student co-chairs.
Part of the feedback that we received from the students in the planning committee is that this should be an inclusive committee, meaning a lot of times when you think about a board level committee, you think I have to have a straight A GPA, I must already be a leader in the district in order to really apply for this, and they're looking for students who have already excelled in these leadership positions. But I think one of the shared visions that came about between the board and the student leaders who worked on this committee is, no, we want youth who have already, and students who have already been in leadership positions, great, you should apply. But if you're a student who you're not already engaged, right, you're not part of athletics, you're not part of bands, you're not part of robotics, you're kind of looking for your thing, this is a great opportunity to come and get engaged. I think if you're a student who's happy with how everything is going, you're really excited with the offerings of the district, and you've had this amazing experience in the district, I think you should apply. If you're a student who says, hey, I wish things were a little bit different in the district, I'd like to offer some recommendations on how to improve the student experience, this is a perfect committee for you. I think we want students on all levels to apply for this to make sure that we have a diverse range of participants.
Are there any other requirements you kind of have to keep when it comes to picking committee members?
Yeah, so actually my favorite thing about being on this planning committee at all was helping to design the application. One of my favorite things is that we don't ask for prior experience. It's all based on what is your creativity, what is your passion. If that can shine through in the application, then there's absolutely no need to prove to us that, oh, I've done this leadership position or I've done that. Do you want to make a change, and are you capable of using your passion to make that change?
Yeah, like President Wilson said, we're looking from anyone across the whole spectrum. We're looking for anybody, no matter what you're doing, and I think that is what we're for, is to get everybody's voice.
If you prove that you are worthy, you can do that. Anybody can.
You know, one of the things I found really interesting is that in the beginning of the process, I think there was a leeriness to a certain extent, how authentic this process was going to be, how, would they truly have a true authentic voice in designing and developing this committee? And I hope that we answer that question with a resounding yes.
I definitely agree with that. I feel like one of the things that did surprise me about this committee when I first came to the first couple of meetings was the authenticity of all the board members. I actually happened to see one of them outside of the planning committees, just out, in the community, and she was very kind. She came over to me, she said hi to me, she acknowledged me, and it made me feel so seen. I knew immediately that this committee, you guys are not doing this to boost your reputation or to make it seem like you really care about the community, but because you actually do.
For sure, and they It's been really cool, like, working with the board members, and you've almost made like a friendship between all the different board members, and they've really gotten to know you and you've gotten to know them, and it's like a wonderful relationship.
You're listening to Community Focus. Our guests are President of the Plymouth Canton Community Schools Board of Education, Mr. Sean Wilson, and P-CCS students Juhi Pawar, Josh Patterson, and Zach Patterson. They're here to discuss the Board of Education Student Voice in Action Subcommittee. So once students do join the committee, how long will they be serving?
You will be serving for 1 year, but you can reapply as many times as you want. To apply for a co-chair position, that will have a term limit of 2 years, and each term will be 1 year.
In this district, diversity and equity and inclusion are really big priorities in our schooling district. Will this committee be playing a role in helping address these concerns for the students?
Absolutely. That was one of the biggest goals that we had when we first gathered. We noticed that a lot of students were being left out due to educational inequity. So one of our biggest things is we're really aiming for is accessibility. We want everybody to know about this, to be able to apply. Everybody should be able to have this chance because we know everybody has the path.
I think our goal as well is for the students who get onto the committee to really branch out and try and get other students' opinions to bring back to the committee. So I think it's really to get all of P-CCS's voice into one group and committee.
We did mention earlier that this committee is also kind of about giving a budget to students who have these ideas. So can you kind of expand on how this committee's budget will be working and who it's going to report to?
So from a budget process, it'll follow the exact same budget process as every other line item for the district. First of all, they need to identify what is it that they're trying to accomplish. And then they'll have to do the research to put together the budget that aligns with that vision. And then ultimately, the committee as a whole will need to approve it, the SVA committee. And then ultimately, they'll need to work with the administration to make sure that the administration is on board. And then that budget will come before the Board of Education for approval. It's going to be a really good experience on how the budgeting process works, the different sign-offs that you need, the way that you need to come to a consensus as a one body, right? So one student can't say, I want to spend X amount of dollars on the annual conference, right? The whole SVA committee has to agree that, yes, that's a priority. And then ultimately, they can't come and say, we want to spend $1 trillion on it, right? So we have to be fiscally responsible. Ultimately, everyone has to have a shared vision on what those dollars should look like. And then the final decision, as with all budget items, will lie with the Board of Education. Once again, I think a vision without resources can only take you so far. And so if we're asking students to provide a vision and really buy into, helping to co-lead some of these initiatives and the district, then I think we, as a Board of Education, also have to be willing to put up some resources behind.
How can people apply to join the committee who are interested?
To apply, you can go to any of the flyers throughout the middle schools and high schools. The middle school flyers will be getting put up shortly. There will be a QR code in the middle, and if you scan the QR code, it will take you right to the district website. The P-CCS K-12 website, it'll be on the front and under our page. The application is also available on all district social media platforms.
For our students here who are on the planning committee, could you guys just say some of the things that you guys have done on planning committee?
Yeah, so one of the things that I like is we've been here since the start. There was no table already built for us to come sit at. We helped build the table. So, we decided where are we going to meet? How often are we going to meet? What do we talk about at each meeting? We help build the agenda. We go over the meeting minutes. I like that we've been a part of everything. One of my favorite things to do so far has definitely been working on promotions. It's crazy how many students you can reach at PSEP. Just like the sheer amount of students in this district is incredible. It's very unique. So things like the extravaganza, participating in that, I love doing it.
I love seeing the excitement of the students during this process. We officially voted on it, I believe, in May, and we had our first meeting early June, and we actually gave the students an option of pausing during the summer, understanding that summer vacation, you probably want some time to hang out with your friends and just take a break. So we gave them an option of pausing during the summer and kind of picking back up. But to their credit, all of the students voted to continue through the summer. So they gave up their summer vacations to help build this committee. I think that really just shows what an amazing group of students we have.
For the actual applications, when are they due?
The applications will be closing on October 10th at 11:59 p.m.
And is there anything else you guys would like to add?
I would just like to say, I know we already talked about it, but I do want to emphasize again, You do not need any experience to do this. If you're interested, that's all it takes. The application process, we tried to keep it as short and non-biased as possible, so it's not favoring people who have done a ton of things before this. And there's also a link to the interview rubric, so you can see how we're going to grade your answers and everything, so everybody has a fair chance.
This is 6 through 12. Anybody from 6 through 12 can do this.
After this group is selected officially, which we would anticipate happening by the end of October, November, we would see the first official meeting taking place in November, December. I think this is just a really great example of how P-CCS as a whole truly values student voice, from the board level to superintendent merit to the administrative team to educators at large. You can just tell that this is a district that truly and authentically values student voice and wants to empower the students to not just have a seat at the table, but build the table.
Thank you for joining me today, Mr. Wilson, Juhi, Zach, and Josh. You've been listening to Community Focus. Our guests have been the president of the Plymouth Canton Community Schools Board of Education, Mr. Sean Wilson, and P-CCS students Juhi Pawar, Josh Patterson, and Zach Patterson. You can hear Community Focus Wednesdays at 5:40 p.m. You can also check out a podcast of the show at our website, 881thepark.com, and on Spotify. Thanks for listening.
Community Focus has been brought to you by the Crum Agency, providers of MEMIC insurance. Their telephone number is 734-254-1976, and they are online at krumagency.com.